Our job today is we're going through some community submissions of video game covers and various things and roasting them constructively.
Thanks everyone again for coming by. This is something that we did last week, so this is still relatively new. But what we're going to do is you just have to submit over here, the short link in there, or the MooBot has an exclamation, row P reviews, and just send me your covers, or you can send maybe our covers, or, you know, we're gonna kind of curate a discussion. What can it be improved upon? What are you liking? What should that person continue to do?
Yeah, I guess I'm most drawn to the visuals so far. I think the symbols sound very strange.
I think that's sounding like a little overcompressed. This was definitely quite ambitious to cross between the cinematic footage, which is kind of like, I think it matches the music quite well.
I do really appreciate the attention put to the visuals. I do like the interjections of the live action stuff, and that's cool. Yeah. Burning that card, that's sick. That's awesome. Okay, that's really good. Like the cuts with crossing off these things, that's amazing. Like
the background is really grimy, so putting like lights behind you, I think would help stand out. That,
yeah, just a little bit of lighting there would be good.
I can't speak to the dabbing. This is different in all sorts of different types of metal, but I kind of like having the drums a lot higher, which is a little bit.
Oh, totally. I think they're different. They're different, like in different styles of music. Of course, there are different expectations to level of drums, but I think that to me it sounded like maybe they weren't as confident with their drum sound.
Sure.
And that's totally reasonable because that's a difficult thing to get right. I think maybe it was because there was so much compression on the drums in the background, like that it caused them to sound not as good. So the person put them in the background. I'm not exactly sure what the process was, but I do think that I would have really liked to have much more. I'd rather have drums that were like too in the face for something like this.
One thing I was thinking of is like a suggestion to, if you have your overheads, don't compress them at all, even in like metal settings. Rather, your drum bus will already be gluing together all of the elements, and that way you're not going to have those harsh cymbal sounds get boosted from all your compression and the auto gain.
And you don't want the sound of cymbals going like whoosh, 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 whoosh. Like that's the worst when they're all like responding when you have a really big kick and then the cymbals like duck in response to the kick and stuff like that. But
the over compression pretty much. But there's also things like parallel compression where you can kind of feed only the kick drums and the snares, whatever you want, and you kind of get a much more clear mix there. But
that would be a good approach for this mix.
The main riff is not like chords as much as it was like individual like notes, like it's playing like a intricate riff. And that's the kind of thing where I think like this subtle palm mute kind of practice to get like a really nice on time sound that locks in with the drums and locks in with the bass would also be kind of cool. The point of compression to control volume, I think.
Yeah, basically it's like if you have something that varies a lot in volume, you're just making it very less in volume. And sometimes if you do it too harshly, it can make things like sound very obviously squashed because you're literally squashing the audio.
Right. There's tons of references out there. I believe one quick one I can point out again, plugging, is on Instagram. My friend Alejandro has a series called Reaper Tips based on the audio software Reaper, but he made a post called like compression, like what is compression? And the explanations and the demos were really, really nice. Like you could learn what compression is in 2 minutes just by looking at that post. So
definitely do that.
Shall we go to the next one?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to be posting the VODs. I'm actually going to try to have someone edit these so people can quickly go through like where their song is, or they can kind of skimp around. It'll be on my second channel, but in the meanwhile, it'll be on Twitch. All right, Undertale.
That's a toxic exclusivity shot right there. One thing I'm noticing is that some of the frame rates of some of the shots aren't lining up quite as well. It's like sounds like something that would happen with a webcam, like in that tapping shot, which looks good. I think it's the shutter speed is like varying between the shots.
I will say I can't really hear the bass guitar. From the intro, it sounded very muddy, but looking at your bass, I know that it's probably more capable of something fuller.
Yeah, I think the guitar playing is great though.
And there's all sorts of ways you can take breaks right before choruses, like things that pop songs do are actually really, really good for modern metal. See how much you can characterize your lead playing. Like there's a lot of vibrato, which is awesome, but there's not a lot of like bends. There's not a lot of different ways to play the same melody.
I agree with Josh King that his technique is really good and the guitars sound really tight. I think the guitar sound is great.
That's kind of like the creative arranging things that really like define your sound. That's how, as far as the video goes, you know, obviously like you're working with what you have, which is fantastic. Having like more intricate technical playing would allow you to like move away from using it. But if you want to dive in, there's also sorts of creative ways you can integrate performance videos that kind of complement or like the game footage or vice versa rather. So obviously music is complementing the video kind of nice. It has the melancholy.
Right. It's a good story so far.
Right.
I like that. That was clean. I like the incorporation here is pretty cool.
Dewey is obviously doing the electric portion and Rich is the guitar player. So to marry a musician who doesn't necessarily show their work, let alone musically put them together, I think that's
really cool.
Rich always has like a kind of creative different ways of showing the game, but I think this is definitely one of the best ways you could do like visualize it. Because the blending modes are getting a little messier. I would see if you could like either darken the game footage even more so that we see him walking on top of everything. Yeah, I would put more compression on the acoustic. It is a little hard to hear compared to the synths.
The drums aren't very sure of where they want to be or like what style they are. Like they're playing, like the drummer's like playing it safe, you know?
There's a beginning and a middle. I don't think there's an end. Does that make sense?
Right. I think that's totally true. Like we had the intro, then we had like the start of the walking sequence, which is like, okay, this is the middle. We're gonna go through this for a while. Then I want something else to happen, and nothing else really happened. This kind of reminds me of Monomonoguchi a little bit, and I think that would be a good reference for especially like the drums and the vibe of the mix.
David's been in the shade both times, and the pop filter and mic are covering most of his face. I don't know if that's intentional. Sometimes it is, but it does make the shot look a little funky.
Yeah. The chords sound great. Like that's a really like crisp and full sound. So that's tight. Awesome.
There could be a little more fullness also, which could come from like either bass of some sort.
It kind of reminds me of some songs from Xenoblade, like some of the ballad songs from Xenoblade.
This shot's a little easier to see. You'll notice the light is all behind him, so the background looks beautiful, but the subject isn't. And I notice a lot of people do that.
I do like this shot from below. That's probably like one of my favorite shots so far.
And this is actually, I think, the best lit shot right now. It's again like the contrast is really, really nice.
Right.
I gotta say, I'm really enjoying the fact that a lot of these videos are outside because it reminds me of what once was.
Okay, so the synth part sounds like Darude Sandstorm. What I would do is I would use more mod wheel LFO and and put like vibrato on the end of the notes, and also like just like stop playing for a second because it sounds like the synth player doesn't have to breathe obviously, but like if you're mimicking a vocalist kind of thing, then you need to leave some space in there.
I would bring this up actually in the mix. That's
a nice language. That needs to come up a lot more. I wish that something like this was more present throughout, like, because like, you know, it's a shame if somebody listens to this for the first, 2.5 minutes and never heard this, they might get bored. But then they hear this crazy thing and they're like, wow, I was waiting for this the whole time. That was awesome. This is really awesome. Good.
I think
the bass is like very consistent and sounds good throughout all of it. Drums still sound a little bit like you don't really know what you want to do with them. Assuming they're programmed. If you have a defined vision of what you want your drums to sound like, and you don't have the drums in there just to have drums, then it adds so much personality and drive to the arrangement. And people, you can turn up your drums a lot more than you think you can because it's mostly transient based stuff, right? So it's not going to obscure as much as like a really, really loud lead vocal will.
Right. This is something that I really like. I don't want to say it's like refreshing, but it kind of is. At least like for me working on metal all day and coming to this, like this is like, bam, it's good stuff. Musically, I think obviously this is very like ambient, chilled out with like.
Yeah. I think it's just taking too long, and I understand that like Celeste is all like this is a long video. Celeste is about long things. Specifically for the YouTube format for YouTube video, then it's just a little bit.
This is where it should
that should have been at 10 seconds. Okay, so now that we're actually into the music, one thing I'm immediately hearing is that everything sounds very dry, which is like an aesthetic you can go for. Specifically for this type of song, which doesn't have like a whole lot going on, you can really use ambience and reverb to create a really cool like musical space.
Like I don't mind the drums.
Drums can be dry, but everything else could use a lot more ambient spice to it. I'm not a fan of this text being up here for so long. Right now I'm trying to watch the gameplay, right? Find some way to delineate visually with the game footage, like that something is changing.
Like flash to a different level maybe, or like maybe add like a small grade.
Oh my god, he's naked. One of the first things I'm noticing is that it sounds like the bass player doesn't know the changes. They're just kind of playing like the scale. I'm also creeped out by Naked Dog so far. He's just like,
I hear the lick. I don't actually know. The piano could also be a lot brighter. Like that break was really cool. I would diversify a lot more because the lead is already repeating for like the 4th time now.
At this point, I'm just like, I want to stop because I've just heard the thing so many times and I know what's coming. I would just say, listen to some people in that hip hop area. I would recommend heavily people like Haywire and Rob Arujo. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but he's one of my friends. One of my roommates from college is a really good synth hip hop producer, and that stuff kind of sounds in the same vibe. And also make sure the bass player knows the changes because it sounds like MIDI. Like the bass player has to like guide the tune, and if the bass player knew what they were doing, it would at least give it a little bit more momentum because then the bass is like the root motion would help drive the song forward.
I would recommend. Again, within remixers, Too Mellow is my favorite. He did KK Cruisin the other day, and watching some of his stream gave a lot of ideas that I don't normally get as a guitar boy.
Right off the bat, I don't like giving a call to action to like, share, subscribe at the very beginning of the video.
This layout is really pretty. I would see if you can make it a little neater, like maybe shrink this a little bit or make your logo smaller. But mix-wise, I'm liking it. It's got a little bit of energy.
The bass and the rhythm sound really good.
I like the bass and the drum interlock.
One subtle thing is that I am not familiar with Gigabyte because there's no visuals. I have no idea what they did, so it's almost irrelevant information for me.
I like that synth going on right now too.
That's really cool.
Now I will say the guitars sound a little like emptied, and that might just be like the nature, like they're a little scooped and not super bright. So I would see about like kind of blending that a little bit more, or even dirtying up the bass guitar. Because when you distort a bass, you're bridging the gap between all of that, luscious sub bass and all of that like crunchy guitar. And that's what makes those like really stacked, fat rock wall of sounds. Consider where your song is gone. Especially as someone doing a lot of electronics, I think samples can be really useful for this kind of stuff. Think about how long you've been at like 10 or how long you've been at 8 in terms of intensity. Like a really cool clean guitar spot could be cool to fill it out.
One thing that helps me is like when I'm doing an arrangement, I kind of have an idea of like a graph in my head of the level of tension throughout the song. You have like a hook or something at the beginning that sets up the context of the thing, and the Rashadi B intro 4 bars with the explosion and
the drum fill. It used to be the reverse symbol, because if you click play on the video, you're diving into something very fast. I think hand posture is preventing this person from playing comfortably. Like they're moving quite a lot.
Yeah, my thought is that they're trying to do too much with one guitar part.
Video-wise, this is still framing really well. Like, if you do this with today's phones, it will turn out pretty fine.
This person has like good taste, I think.
Sure. Now
it's just a mismatch between like the level of execution and taste, which is what we all struggle with.
I think I want to encourage people to explore more than just single covers. But when you're doing a medley, you're combining a lot of different songs. And at least in my experience, doing a medley takes a little bit more engineering and work than a single cover. Spend like 5 times the amount of time and thinking on just one song. Really work through that song, get your technique down.
One thing I would do straight up is mark some articulations into music, because the melody goes ba 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 ba, and there's a short note on that quarter note on the first bar of the phrase. I know it's MIDI, but like if you have that stuff written in, then players will will like it a lot more. In the piano part, you have all these chord voicings written out. If you're giving that to a real piano player, what I would do is also have the chord symbol written, because then that gives the piano player like two forms of context. They can see the voicing you want, but the piano player also knows the chord trying to get them to play. Exact same thing with the bass line. Like I know you have this walking bass written out. What I would probably do is just hide that and then put slashes over it, put the chord symbols. Drums just have like slashes to repeat the groove.
Chord symbols also to me help me from a glance kind of understand where the song's going.
So one thing you're doing really well is you're like you're putting your backgrounds where the long notes are. So you have like ba ba be ba 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 be da da ba ba da da ba ba da 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 ba da ba da da ba. So that's a good way to format backgrounds. Just put them where the spaces are. So sometimes there's a little bit of dissonance between those held notes. And what I would do is have the trumpets cut off their held note as soon as another group starts playing like a harmonized chord.
Probably want to boost the volume there a little bit.
Yeah, I think you have a good ear and you have a good sense of what is good. So the taste is there.
Maybe?
It's just the gap is in the execution. I think it would be kind of cool if how the credits like they kind of move in and they move out sideways.
Imagine you're giving someone a hug.
Yeah,
the arm thing. Yes, I think that would be a very good suggestion. I would bring up the percussion also quite a bit. I felt like I couldn't tell where the tempo was.
The real piano, like I'm glad you're using it. Just look into ways to record it better and in general, like get your mic closer to things, especially if you're doing multi-tracks, because if you start doing multi-tracks with a lot of different, with a lot of reverb or a lot of room noise, then it all just blends together, and it kind of, you get a lot of the room and less of what you're looking for.
Bass is a little overpowering.
Right. I think that's because the bass is playing an octave lower than it should be. I will say that your trumpet playing is great.
Yeah, this
and the saxophone playing is great.
Nice. Like a dual solos are really cool to me.
Yeah, especially when it's across a woodwind and a brass instrument. Like I have so much respect for people who can actually do that. And then there are some things in the drum part that like just don't really make sense.
It's really fun. I do like that the backdrop is colorful. Stylistically, for a fun song, I think putting attention to like the look of it is really important. Everything from the dog to the dancing.
Oh, I like this. I like this a lot. I will say that when I first heard your alto tone, it sounded a little bit pinched from what I like. Check out people like Patrick Bartley. Like he's the guy. He's like my favorite alto player in the world right now. And it's hard to get like a good full alto sound.
I'm also noticing the drum sounds a little mono, because like the ride is straight up center.
One thing you can do is you could probably export the MIDI from like Noteflight and put them into a free drum software. For music like this, like I like to pan the overhead super wide, because that really brings the drums forward. I will say your fork F sharp on your alto sounds really sharp. That was awesome.
That was a really fun cover. I think that game also suits your instrumentation really well.
I already like this. 24. Okay, 24 FPS. There we go.
I gotta tell you this, Tony. This video looks insanely good compared to the last one. I would bring up the drums more for this aggressive stuff.
I think it's more like the sound of the drums.
Low end could also be improved a little bit. This is really cool arranging too. This is like a micro thing. See if you can throw like another light in front of you, because the walls are brighter than the performance too.
That was really good. I really liked that. Right off the bat, like that stacked thing is super cool. Man, this is brilliant. Danny, you're nuts.
This is the second video we've seen with a costume. Costumes really do blow me away when I see them. Also,
the one thing, like if you wanted to add one thing to this, the thing I would add would be a concert bass drum or a timpani, just for some like funny like low end hits in there. I think the articulation in this is so good.
Yeah, it's very precise in terms of playing, vibrato.
Yeah, and props on that fretless. I don't see metal played on a fretless very often.
I would try to give like a little bit more juice to the drums. Maybe like bring up the rim mic. If you love a band and you're trying to make covers like them, that is a great source.
This almost sounds too clean.
I learned from Jack, Toxic X Eternity, to switch up a lot of your stuff where you can. Like, obviously he's got a couple different guitars, which can sound different too.
It feels like he put everything in the bowl right? But you haven't really like spiced it up or mixed things together yet. Like it feels like everybody's there having a good time, but I think you need a little bit more compression and saturation.
Sure.
To add a little more edge. I would
the solo is really quiet too. That's part of the dynamic, because right now it does sound like a flat, solid song. So this could be a really cool moment.
Also, like some synthesizers. Like here, could use like a.
Oh yeah. This is a dope song, and I love 80s metal. Like I grew up on a lot of 80s rock and things like that. But you can bring out a lot more dynamics.
If you're playing with an EBO, I think like some guitarists are used to playing like leads very straight without a lot of vibrato. I would say that just vibrato it up. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just gives it a little bit more life. Yeah, it's the same thing. You just vibrato the string.
But yeah, you can have like these nice like rise, ebbs and flows of your dynamics.
They sound a little out of sync.
Yeah.
Just a very like, slight bit.
You could actually pan them out a little wider too.
So I thought that reverse cymbal buildup didn't really have as good as a payoff as I wanted it to.
I think the drums are too quiet for it to have a payoff.
Yeah. So I would be cautious of doubling a guitar with that synth lead in the same octave, especially. Because if you're even just a little bit off out of tune on the guitar, like it'll sound bad.
Drastic. I would drop the synth maybe. Like the synth going on is kind of cool now. I think drums just got to be a lot louder to get like the groove going on. And see how many ways you can play that same Ruins lead, that same chorus, in different inflections. Like that's a really cool ornamentation too. That is one thing I've noticed. A lot of people do mix drums quite quietly.
It's kind of scary, to turn up your drums so much. I think part of it is that like most of us are using synthesized drums.
Sure.
Or sampled rather.
Everything's gonna sound loud. When you mix quietly, it's very obvious if your drums are too quiet in comparison.
You have to listen at like different volume levels. That's so important. Mix for a while at like a really whisper quiet volume, because then you can really tell like, can I actually hear this or can I actually not? Yeah, mixing quietly is really good for bass, because bass is one of the hardest things to get right. Because like if your bass is just a little bit too loud, then you basically ruin the entire song because you get ear fatigue. Oh my god!
Oh god, it walked! Kill it! The main melody's a little quiet. I will say, like, those little fills are actually helping the song. This would work really well with a lo-fi filter.
It just feels like a Game Boy soundtrack, basically.
And it is kind of repetitive. I would say diversify the arrangement where you can.
It doesn't have to be super long. If this video is like a 45-second video, I think it would work super well. There's no need to create a long series of attention.
It's a rest area song. I think we already mentioned this before, but like just from the YouTube game of sorts, you'd want to hit the ground running very fast. This is how you should open the video, because nobody else magically has so many talented people in one room playing game music.
I think that shot should have been the first shot, because that changes the context of everything so much. Now that I know that that's the context, it really changes like the expectations of what the mix is going to sound like. The arrangement sounds good. The band is good.
I would expect like solo sections.
The one thing that was kind of interesting was that there was that alto like kind of playing like solo fills. There's a little bit of it like playing throughout the arrangement, and I thought it was a little jarring to hear the super roomy band recording plus that close mic performance. I might have considered just like not even going with a close mic and just having the alto player like play really loud or something like that.
It's like a half arrangement thing and a half a production thing.
You're lucky that your drummer has a the shield for a project at school. Cool. Well, that's a cool project. It sounds good.
I will also say, like, there's some sick coloration of lights, but it's still very dark. It's definitely easier with DSLRs, especially in modern cameras, to light it a little bit brighter and then dark later.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to be watching this on their phone at middle or lower brightness. The tapping is absolutely awesome, and it's balanced.
I'm not as big a fan as like the twangy sound.
This is a math rock like staple, yeah.
The Start on the 2 thing is great, but I think the way it was is like there wasn't enough difference between the 1 and the 2, because you had the lead came on the 1, you had like a kick drum on the end, so it was like 1 and 2, so it wasn't as it's better if you like hold back everything except one element just for the 2 and make the 2 super big.
But obviously, like the drums in this aren't quite as upfront and I think that's like a key characteristic of this music style. But visually, this is really fun. It's very suited. Always more enjoyable when someone's in costume or the place is decorated to serve the song, serve the game. I liked my guitar tone here. I think you panned it a little farther out than I'd like.
Yeah, I would have probably kept it closer to the middle.
My tone is so weird with that. I remember this year variation.
Yeah, and I had to make you you had to learn how to play it, and it was a very complex lead part.
I mean, it was.
I'm drinking water.
That shows how much you care.
I never noticed that. What the heck?
I didn't notice that either. I've seen this video a lot. I hate my solo, by the way.
Why do you hate it?
It's just boring.
I do think that the groove gets a little boring here. Like, I should have.
Yeah, diversify it to match. I like this modulation.
I'm really proud of those descending bow, bow.
Holy smoke. All right, this looks more complex than After Effects. I like the part complexity right now.
Oh, that's cool.
This is
all I have to say about it is that it sounds good.
So this is a video I sight read to your MIDI. That bass also sucks.
This was an interesting arrangement. It's chill, but like almost annoying.
I loved this. This like riff was really cool to have us jam on. Yeah, the bass is also really like not present. Like to begin the roasting here. It's a really nice video. I think you put us together really well even back then. Oh, I like that. I like that. I still like that.
I think it's cool, but it's still very extra. Like the song did not need this.
I don't think the guitar sound meshes as well with the vocals. It meshed better with the sax. There's some cool stuff there though.
Yeah, that like I think some of the textural ideas
Terra
were
disappears
cool
at the end,
but just like not just bad. It's not really jazz, but this is some cool harmony.
You could take the piano to more places, I guess.
This is some legit piano.
Genre labeling aside, this stuff here is so cool. So just steer into that with the piano too. Make it like really wet, reverby.
Did you guys hear that glissando from that high C to the high E flat?
Holy demonetized.
So awesome.
That is awesome.
Tara, I want you to do something like
what
this, but like with what she can do now. I just think the harmonies are really good. This was a weird video. There was some bad stuff we did in here.
This is a brighter video than anything we've watched in a while. Not sure if that matters at all.
I think it still sounds pretty cool. I still like this arrangement quite a bit. It sounds pretty decent.
When you got electric bass, a lot of stuff sounded just that much better.
I still like the structure of the arrangement. That's what matters the most to me. It's just very dry.
This actually feels more like conventional arranging now. Like, because we're returning, maybe this is the original song. We're returning to like this chorus kind of vibe. From a production standpoint too, these vocals sound like really untouched compared to what you would do now with the variety of...
They're so dry.
Yeah, the vocals that you do now, especially where there's like more compression, dare say automation. This dude's got a killer voice. He did Toss a Coin with Colby and me. I think right now it's very low, the vocals.
I can't understand anything.
I like the guitar and bass and the drums right now. Like they're locked in really nice. I would probably bring out the vocals a lot more.
Ooh,
your vocal control is fantastic there. I think it's actually better in that range than during the low spots.
The snare sounds a little papery to me.
Yeah, it would be nice to have more of the snap. I can't tell if the video was live and he's just not hitting it hard anyway, but vocals are sick. The lineup of your harmonies is really tight, which is something I've learned is so crucial to getting.
Yeah, I think it was also that the snare drum was just tuned kind of low on that kit. It just sounds kind of floppy. Didn't have as much like smack. And obviously that's not something you can really fix in the mix that much. That's having a good kit set up.
Well, you just audio to MIDI it and then you load up get drums or screw.
There you go.
And then you don't tell the drummer. Yeah, I would say this is a respectable intercut between footage, but I mean the performance is also really cool.
Yeah, this is pretty solid.
I would probably like add some more compression, parallel compression maybe, like to the drums. I would also try to bring up like this guitar solo of sorts, because there's some really cool effects. Maybe like even pan it left and right differently.
The toms on the drum kit sound like buckets. which is like it's just hard to get right. Like good
I would
toms,
say
like,
louder.
like resonant.
Also getting like a little bit more vibrato and keeping the intonation in check, because this is such an attitude song, and your lead is almost like your vocals too.
Yeah,
you want that energy to match. That's why, like, you know, you listen to like Dimebag Darrell and Phil Anselmo from Pantera. One of them is screaming and one of them is screaming. Honestly, this is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think the vocals are my favorite part.
Yeah, the vocals are stand out, making sure you service that and everything around it. As far as like the video could go, I think adding the filter helps. If you can't film the drums in the same space, that's pretty much the best case scenario. When you're doing black space stuff, you know, like a lot of your shots were kind of the same sizes. So just experimenting with that with guitars can kind of help. But with collabs, collabs are hard to edit to make it look seamless. Carlos has been doing a great job with it, with either the split screens or the grades. But nothing's quite as good as IRL.
Fire Emblem Fates End of All, the same song I did with Tara, but this time with two more competent people than the two of us. This is the professional version of the cover that Tara and I did.
Lorenzo is one of the people I love the sense of design and look for from like day one of seeing his channel.
His videos look so great. I wish the vocals here are a bit higher. I'm kind of confused by the big ass border around the screen. Okay, now the border's gone.
I love this arrangement right now. Utilizing the entire range of a guitar, so it's like musically interesting, and that's something
I love his like stage performance too.
If you move around and are enjoying it, chances are people will get that.
He's a happy boy.
He's a happy boy. And the cuts are keeping up with the song, but they're not like aggressive.
Right.
Which I think the mix is also, it's pretty solid. I love the change of tones too there. Adding effects is one of the things that I love guitarists to use, especially in like the 90s. There's a lot of grunge usage. It just diversifies your sound better. And like this fades with the reverb. Reverb delay and crossfading goes together for me with video editing. I just wish it was a little bit sharper in focus there.
Something about this guitar tone sounds a little bathroomy to me.
It is a little like wetter and less impactful compared to like the rest of the song. I would probably see about like bringing that out. I wouldn't mind having like a bit more DI in the bass tone too, like just for moments right before this drop. Because I love the fuzz right now, the way it is. And the crossfading for the singer in a plain background is really, really nice.
That's awesome.
But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
honestly, that's a solid piece. I'm hearing an incorrect note there. I like the change. I would also try to do like a pan and zoom of the background, just so that something is moving. Or like fade across like different shots from the game. The timing is actually also pretty good for piano covers. I did not expect the drums and the harmonica. It does have that cute kind of like small vibe. I would probably expand on the stereo image too. Yeah, it sounds like it was recorded in one shot, no multi-tracking, which means that you have to in person kind of work it. But I think the instrumentation's very charming. That's a good word. So yeah, expanding that way, maybe like have a shaker.
God, Billy's so good.
Billy comes up with like, he has the dynamics thing down. Like he literally posted a vocal cover that is like hauntingly, beautifully droning on. And then he'll post like, this cover was 230 BPM.
What do you do with a 9-string guitar?
There's only one actual band I know that's used one after the burial. They have a low C sharp. It's not necessary, but I will say the 8-string I've been using has been fantastic. Like I would say here, it feels like the guitars, they could have a little bit more attack, and it could just be overall a little bit brighter a mix, a little more like attack in the drums. But I know.
Oh my god.
Yeah, now you can hear it. That's a low E.
Oh my god.
No, sorry, that's a low E flat, guys. I will say all of Doom, Billy's Doom covers have like 5 times the attitude. I would love to see him play with colors, even cheap LEDs or things to suit the video, because he's like in this nice bright room playing like the heaviest video game cover I've ever seen. And like it's gotten to that point where it's like distracting, or like it makes me want that for him. Like
it looks too clean for what you hear.
Right. Like okay. There's finally difference between what we're seeing and what we're hearing. I'm liking the diversity of the instruments and the video look. Like with a white backdrop, you almost don't need the split shots.
Like in a shot like this, when there's no visual hierarchy, when everything is like evenly spaced.
If you match where you're panning it, I think that's awesome, and that gets us closer. This is a fantastic array of instruments. I would say right now, it's very quiet, like it doesn't sound mastered.
The YouTube volume level or whatever.
Oh, I love the little baby ocarina. Yeah, this is a like if I were watching Earthbound the cartoon, turn up your yam.
That's his contrabass ocarina is the yam.
I like that the arrangement has changed on the repeat a little bit. Like we're getting this new instrument added halfway in. It suits. And this is my favorite song from Earthbound, I think.
Man, that's high for a tuba. Jesus. Wow, and then it slows down chorales? Wow.
This is a great arrangement. Like, there's small like production-y, small like volume things.
All right, I'm thinking of how he could make the video even more effective. Split screen is good. Like it
I think
shows
for this many instruments, yeah, that is a selling point. Carlos is playing Diddy, obviously. So the hat backwards is it.
If you want,
there's the Krakens.
we take you through.
Jesus.
Is he in his sister's bra? Is that what it is?
Yes, that was the story. And this video clip, when I put it on my computer, it said 1978 under the date. I am not joking. I like how I had the good sense to put the Donkey Kong in the background. Not that it helped at all.
That was impressive.
I mixed this too.
Yeah, you did.
It has Superior Drummer or whatever loops.
I love Dan.
Oh my god. I remember that. I was just like, why the hell did he say that? Oh god. And I still look so short. I'm wearing a freaking NC State shirt too. I would happily do DK rap, but it would have to go so much surgery to like make it palatable.
Even just us two or the people in this video, like we could make a really good DK rap.
Thank you everyone for joining this. This was not like an elitist like poop on everyone's video thing. This is a community event where all of us can get together with all of us sharing our valid opinions.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
This is the best way for me to know what people like and dislike and how to improve craft, even though we didn't roast me as much. I think we roasted a lot of my contributions to your collabs. So the answer here is I'm never collabing with you ever again. But
I'm so sorry.
It's a really good humility exercise, and it's also just a good way to diversify our hearing.
I'm glad you learn. Learning is so important.
Yeah, like when you were talking about the sheet music arranging too, it's things that I wouldn't think about, and I think this is what makes it a community. Also, huge thank you, Carlos, for joining this little event too.
Thanks for having me.
I don't think I can do this guestless. So if anyone in the chat has like ideas for other musicians who have like a lot of years of experience doing the VGM stuff and are very like communicative, I should get Jack on. I don't know, maybe I should get Jack. Twitch canceled, boom, banned. Right there. Jack is definitely someone I'm gonna reach out to, but he's streaming right now. But yeah, I would love to get plenty of the variety of experienced musician friends, especially if I can get people who know A, more than me, and B, like different than me. But anyway, thanks everyone for sticking to the stream. I'm gonna post a lot of this stuff on my socials. If anyone's new to my channel for some reason and came here because Carlos is here, which is probably all of you, you can follow at Panuganti. I will tweet out next time we do one of these if your music didn't get heard. And obviously, like, we have Discords, we have other ways of sharing feedbacks. So thanks and drive safe.